Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. You have probably heard the phrase, what got you here won't get you there. If you're someone building something, and I'm sure you are, otherwise you wouldn't be here at the No Days Off podcast. If you're someone building something, whether it's in business or it's a brand or it's a team, or maybe it's just a better version of you, of yourself, you know that statement's true. What got you here won't get you there. Here's the real question though. What will get you there? What will get you there? Well, there's this guy named Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and this is where he comes in addressing this question of what will get you there. Dr. Hardy just released his new book called The Science of Scaling, and I'm about halfway through it, and I'm really, really enjoying it. Now, he has written lots of great books. This is not another 10X book. In my opinion, this is a real tactical framework for how to grow your company or your brand or whatever it may be at a faster clip without losing your mind or losing your soul. So, who is Dr. Hardy? Well, he's a psychologist, and he's actually one of the most read authors on a number of different sites. I think Medium, that site, he like ranks at the very top. But more importantly, he's put out a couple best-selling books with Dan Sullivan, like Who Not How and The Gap and the Gain and 10X is better than 2X. But I think this time with this book, he's not writing just about mindset. He is writing about execution. And Hardy says that most people think scaling actually means doing more. And he contends that it's the opposite. Scaling is not doing more. Scaling is about doing less and doing it with more intensity and more clarity. He has a framework for this, and it's clean and it's simple. I think it's pretty powerful, and it's called Frame, Floor, Focus. Stick with me. We're going to talk through frame, floor, focus. So frame. Start with the impossible goal. The first step is what Dr. Hardy calls frame. And this is the shift that I think really unlocks everything. What you do is you set an impossible goal, something that's 10X or 20X or 100X bigger than what you were currently aiming for. Now, why an impossible goal? Because it completely changes how you think. It breaks your current model. It forces you to simplify. When you commit to something massive, you no longer have the time or the tolerance for anything that's average. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're running a business that does $1 million in revenue. If you're like so many others, you go out and set a goal for that business that does $1 million in revenue, and you set the goal for 1.2 million the next year. That's a reasonable goal. And then what do you do to get there? Well, you probably push a little harder. You tweak a few things. There's not a lot of change. Now, let's flip this a little bit. What if you set that goal not at 1.2 million the next year, but you set the goal at 10 million? So you want to go from 1 million to 10 million. What happens? Well, in my opinion, this forces you to ask entirely different questions. For example, who do I need to hire, or who do I need to partner with? Or what customer is worth 10X more? Or what systems would completely break or collapse under that scale? This isn't a stretch goal. This isn't just a stretch goal. It's a totally different worldview. That's what Dr. Hardy means when he says frame. So we start with the frame. Next is the floor. We eliminate everything that's below the standard. So better said, once you reframe the target, the next step is to raise the floor. So Dr. Hardy says you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your standards. You've heard that statement before. This is where you start to eliminate everything that no longer matches the new frame. You have to eliminate things like the clients that drain you, the meetings that waste time, the people who are on your team that might be good, but they're not great, the tasks that keep you busy, but don't actually move the needle. The idea is this. If something doesn't help you hit that impossible goal, it's gone. It gets cut. I think this is where most people struggle because cutting good things is actually pretty hard. It's harder than cutting bad things. But as you've probably heard, good is the enemy of great. So if you want to scale, you've got to create some space. You don't grow by piling on. You actually grow by sweeping the floor, by clearing the floor. Which leads us to the final stage of this framework, which is focus. And that's when you really pour into the few things that truly scale. So you've reframed the goal, you've raised the floor, now you got to lock in your focus. I think this means that you've got to bring about some ruthless concentration. Ruthless concentration on the few things that create the outsized returns. So maybe it's your best clients, again, in this example. Maybe it's your clearest channel. Maybe it's your most productive habits. Maybe it's your highest value relationships. If you're in sales, that might mean spending 80% of your time with your top 10% of prospects. If you're building a brand, that might mean stopping, building content on 5 different platforms and instead just dominating one. If you're leading a team, that might mean clearing your calendar of all but one weekly strategy session. Focus is where scaling actually happens. This to me is not about working harder, grinding harder. It's about putting more intensity into less. So let's bring this all home. How does this apply to you? Well, I've used variations of this framework in my businesses before. It's not, I haven't named it in this way, but learning from Dr. Hardy with 10X is greater than 2X or is better than 2X. And some of these other things he's put out, I've been able to apply certain concepts. For example, I have framed an impossible goal for a new business. Not 20% growth, but I asked, how can we triple the business this year? And as a result, it forced us to rethink everything. I've also cut partnerships in the past or got out of partnerships where the needle just wasn't being moved. In other words, I was dealing with good people, good intentions, but not the right fit. I've also focused my team before in another business on a single deliverable that I believed would change the game. And as a result, we moved on that deliverable faster than ever anticipated because it was the only thing on the radar. I think in life, the same thing shows up. What's your fitness frame? Is it to lose a few pounds? Or is it to run an ultra marathon? What's your floor for relationships? Do you still tolerate those that suck energy away from you? What are you focused on today? Is it real priority? Or is it just you being busy, you being in motion? So here's what I want to challenge you to do today. Okay. Number 1, I want you to set your frame. Pick one area of your life or your business and write down the impossible version of that goal. Not a 2X, but like a 10X or a 20X. So number 1, set the frame. Number 2, I want you to raise the floor. I want you to do this by asking, what needs to go? If I'm going to get to this 10X version, what needs to go? What do I need to stop doing or stop tolerating or stop saying yes to right now? And then number 3, in your action item, I want you to find your focus. In other words, I want you to identify the one thing that if you do it with intensity, it would move you closer to that impossible goal. That's it. That's your frame, your floor, and your focus. Now, this framework will work for you because it's not about hustle. I really think it's about alignment. It's not about doing a whole bunch of work or doing more. It's about doing the right things and doing it with some speed and clarity. If you want to scale your business, start subtracting. If you want to scale your life, raise the standard. If you want to go from point A to point B, change the frame, cut the noise, and then go all in with your focus. That's all I have for you today, the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.